Hey everyone, Gill Gross here, post-match. Novak Djokovic versus Lorenzo Musetti, Monte Carlo 2023, round of 16. If you're not here for spoilers, click off the video in 3, 2, 1. Lorenzo Musetti comes full circle and finally does it. He beats Novak Djokovic in 3 sets. The world number 1, the biggest win of Musetti's career against a man who delivered him the biggest nightmare of his career in 2020 on a clay court at Roland Garros when Musetti blew a 2-0 lead against Novak. I think in a lot of ways, to this day, Musetti is still best known for losing that match, partially because it was a historic moment. Djokovic would go on to win Roland Garros that year, but also because since that moment, Musetti hasn't really found himself in that situation yet again. Certainly not in the second week of a major, giving a top player a run for his money. But on this occasion, Musetti once again was clearly going to have a chance to win this match. It was back and forth the entire time from start to finish. And what makes this win, I think, even more impressive was the rain delay that occurred at 1-all, where Musetti was going to be afforded even more time to sit and think about the position he was in. The position of having another chance to beat Novak Djokovic and trying, I'm sure, not to think too hard about that Roland Garros 2020 match. Not to mention Novak came out and started serving bigger, hitting better in the third set after the rain delay right away. His speeds were up from what he was achieving before the rain delay. And still Musetti, despite a couple of nervous match point mistakes and shanks, got through the finish line. Made enough first serves, stayed solid enough in some key rallies, and had enough to close out this victory. Something to feel extremely confident about if you're Musetti moving forward. Something that hopefully will completely erase. And I don't know if Roland Garros 2020 still existed in the psyche of Lorenzo Musetti, but if it did, this could go a long way in erasing that. To me, the word is cathartic. It was a cathartic win for Musetti. But beyond that, and analyzing now kind of what happened on the tennis court, it was certainly Djokovic who was not able to bring his normal level to the tennis court. Wasn't able to do it in the first round against Ivan Gakhov either. Djokovic found a way, beat Gakhov 7-6, 6-2. But Musetti was going to pose a step up in competition, and Djokovic's level did not rise in coordination or in lockstep with that step up in competition. Cardio wasn't the problem for Novak Djokovic, as I feel it's been at Monte Carlo in the last couple of years in losses against Dan Evans and Alejandro Davidovich Fokina, where his shot tolerance was not up to snuff. But similar to those losses, he was forced to play a lot of long rallies because his point-shortening weapons were not potent enough to be effective. That starts with the first serve, which averaged just 107 miles per hour in this match. Only 10% of Novak Djokovic's first serves were unreturned. That issue was compounded with his forehand, which did not bring the necessary level of potency that he needs to bring to it on a clay court. He had very little serve +1 success in this match. And it took a lot of hard work for Djokovic to find finishes against Musetti. Very rarely was it straightforward as Novak really being able to lean on his forehand power to hit the ball past Lorenzo Musetti in this match. And Musetti won 0-4 shot rallies 54-50. At the end of the match, and that should never happen. Djokovic is a superior server, a superior returner, has a bigger first ball forehand. There is no way that he should lose the 0-4 shot rallies against Musetti, it is excusable and understandable for Novak to lose the lengthier rallies or maybe the mid-length rally subset. But the short rallies should be something that Djokovic owns. His serve and his forehand and even his return were so off kilter in this match that even in the 0-4 shot rally length, Djokovic couldn't get the better of Musetti. Now, the serve and the forehand, and I haven't heard what he said in the press conference, a big part of that was likely his right elbow, which had a, what should I call that? Compression sleeve. There was a compression sleeve on his right elbow, which is not typical of Novak, and it suggests that there were some issues. You saw him during the rain delay, certainly doing some exercises to loosen up the elbow. We did see him shake out the right arm on court during certain periods of time, but all you really need to see is the average first serve speed and how in the dumps that was, just to know that there was an issue. Now, the wind doesn't help. The wind affects the ball toss. Monte Carlo in general is a difficult place to serve effectively at. But if I were to guess, in his press conference, he is going to allude to right elbow issues. And of course, without the ability to play a lot of matches recently, if you're Novak Djokovic, these kinds of physical ailments are going to be much more typical for a player who hasn't gotten the typical match play in. Again, it is very hard to simulate the rigors of a match when it comes to the tension, when it comes to the pure numbers of repetition. The amount of serves and forehands you're hitting over the course of a match, very hard to replicate that in practice. And it is fairly normal for a player to develop pain in certain areas when they're not used to playing those matches. The last thing I'll say for Djokovic is that he missed so many returns of serve down the stretch of the third set. If you really zoom in on what happened in the third, I felt that was the most significant issue for Djokovic, is that once Musetti went up a break, Novak really couldn't apply the kind of pressure necessary to allow Musetti to feel those nerves and to potentially make some mistakes, because Novak wasn't making returns in play. There were even second serve returns, crucial ones that Djokovic missed down the stretch that really gave Musetti a pass and turned that pressure valve down to a minimum level. That said, Musetti does do a great job defending on clay and making it difficult for Djokovic to find finishing forehands, especially if that shot wasn't fully confident. Musetti was patient in long rallies, especially after the first set when he realized that Djokovic wasn't going to be able to hit through his defenses fairly easily. I think you have to give a lot of credit to Lorenzo for recognizing that and making an adjustment in his aggression level. I saw far fewer instances of Musetti being overly aggressive on his backhand down the line in particular after the first set, when he just recognized that his best path to victory was going to be to make as many balls as possible and to force Djokovic to find successful offense against Musetti's defense. And Musetti did not gift wrap mistakes from neutral often, especially in key moments, especially in long rallies. He made it tough on Novak to finish with his forehand. With his speed and with his defensive positioning, Musetti very willing to drop back in his court position and to use his legs to run down extra balls. But it's also the way he was playing when he found himself well beyond the baseline. He was enjoying his high and heavy ball from the back of the court, which does a couple things. I think it keeps Djokovic from stepping in and hitting approach shots. It backs him up. At least if Novak wants to step in, then he's playing on the rise, which presents challenges on the clay in itself. So to play a very high and heavy from the back of the court does do a nice job of keeping Djokovic back on the baseline. and also bothering his contact point. Allowing the wind to affect the ball certainly was an advantage in the first and the second set, pre-rain delay especially. It was quite windy here in Monte Carlo, which I don't think Djokovic ever enjoys. And then perhaps the most important part of that is he wasn't giving Djokovic any pace to work with. With Novak being subpar in his pace generation, perhaps feeling the elbow a little bit on the forehand, or potentially just not having that strength built up, which we've seen over in the last couple of clay court seasons, that as he kind of works towards Roland Garros, and usually it takes until Rome until this is fully the case, Djokovic's forehand gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And at Monte Carlo, it just hasn't had the weight to it that it needs to have. For Musetti to take the pace out of the ball is going to exacerbate that problem to the best possible extent. So Musetti defensively, I think, posed a lot of issues and played very, very well. Defense and neutral. But overall, and this is the kind of thing where I usually get hate for saying these kinds of things after a player delivers a big victory, but, you know, it's my job to just be honest with you guys about what I'm seeing. I'm not actually that excited about Musetti's level right now. I thought, you know, he nearly lost this match to Djokovic despite Novak essentially playing without his serve. And I'm still seeing a lot of flaws in Musetti's game. He's still giving up ground too easily for my liking, even on clay. He isn't approaching the net with confidence when he gets the chance. His backhand isn't as impactful as it was on the indoor hard courts, where his backhand down the line was really a dazzling weapon when he was having some success on the indoor hard courts at Paris-Bercy and in Florence and the other... Where did they play in Italy? Did they play in Naples? I think so. Yeah. I did like what he did on the forehand today. It was consistent. He did a good job of maintaining high margin aggression with his inside-out forehand. But I'm afraid that without the serve setting it up as often as it needs to, and without the aggressive footwork, he's not going to be getting enough chances to really rip the forehand from good positions. And as a result, I don't really anticipate that Musetti is going to find enough offense moving forward. So I'm really happy for him. I think it's a huge victory for him, but I don't think he's at a top 20 level yet. I do think his style in a lot of ways will annoy Jannik Sinner. The same thing, you know, the speed, the court coverage, the consistency, the high and heavy ball, his ability to absorb Sinner's power on this slow clay court. I think those things are going to bother Jannik, but ultimately I still think that there's going to be too much of a skill gap that exists between Sinner and Musetti. And even though it's a good matchup, I still think Sinner will win. So again, I'm happy for Lorenzo, but I don't have a lot of great things or great feelings about what he'll be able to do as far as challenging for big titles for the remainder of clay court season. I still don't see him as that player. And maybe he can for Monte Carlo, because I think that there's an opportunity here. I've said that from the very start of the tournament. Maybe just like Musetti did against Novak in this match, he can take advantage of an opportunity here in conditions that suit him as well as any conditions in the world. Hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you next time.